Hello, and welcome to the Data Engineering Podcast, the show about modern data management. Legacy CDPs charge you a premium to keep your data in a black box. RudderStack builds your CDP on top of your data warehouse, giving you a more secure and cost-effective solution. Plus, it gives you more technical controls so you can fully unlock the power of your customer data. Visit dataengineeringpodcast.com/RudderStack today to take control of your customer data. Your host is Tobias Macey, and today I'm interviewing DeVaris Brown about the impact of real-time data on business opportunities and risk profiles. So, DeVaris, welcome back to the show. For people who haven't listened to your previous episode where you introduced Meroxa, can you just give a bit of an introduction?
Yeah, thank you again for having me on. I know I think we talked at the beginning of COVID, and it's been, wow, time flies. But yeah, we've evolved a little bit. Still the same mission. We want to make real time data the default for any organization, but we have changed our focus to empowering regular software engineers to utilize real time data with their favorite programming language and existing developer workflows to innovate and solve problems. I think that that's really what we do. We built a platform that allows you to ingest, process, orchestrate, and stream real time data with just regular code. Kind of a big middle finger out to the rest of the drag and drop low code, no code world where you kind of automate, copy paste, and then you have to add another point solution on at the end of that to actually get usage out of that data. Like you can do everything with the code, in place, and not have to rip and replace anything from a platform or a process standpoint. So that's Meroxa in a nutshell.
And how about DeVaris in a nutshell? How about just you?
Oh yeah, me. CEO, co-founder, Meroxa. Yeah, that's pretty much it. That's all encompassing. I'm originally from Chicago. Went to University of Illinois. Been out in the Valley in total for probably 13 years now. I was here too, moved away, then kind of came back when I had a company that got acquired by another company out here. So yeah, I mean, I've been a product manager. So if you've used I mean, not Windows, but Microsoft Azure, Zendesk, Heroku, you've used the DeVaris stack in some way, shape, or form. My whole life has been, should say whole life, but professional life has been mostly focused on empowering developers to be more productive. And so a lot of places I've worked at, that's what I've done, and not stopping that while I'm doing Meroxa.
You've mentioned already a bit about kind of what it is that you're building there and some of the ways that the focus and goals of the platform and company have evolved. And in terms of the target customers, you mentioned that you're now focused on software engineers, developers. I'm wondering if you can give a bit of nuance as to, are there any particular kind of industries or problem areas that you are seeing a lot of adoption, or that you have been kind of focusing on kind of developing towards, or if there's a particular avenue that you have found works well for your entree into a given company, whether it's bottom up from developers who are tasked with just make this thing work, and then they find Meroxa and say, oh, hey, this does everything for me, or is it more of a kind of top down, or do they meet in the middle?
Yeah, right now it's completely top down. Like the basically what we found is that we do really great work for defense in the highly regulated industry. So because of their requirements to be secure in the moment all the time, and so banks, insurance, health, defense, intelligence, that type of stuff, that's really where we found a general nexus into the center of gravity around like the people who utilize us and gravitate towards us. I mean, really, any large organization now, we basically go in and say like, look, your data team is siloed off, inundated with requests from all parts of the business, and they're frankly overwhelmed. So what does it look like to turn your entire engineering organization into a data team using the Meroxa tools, and you don't have to rip and replace anything, and and they can do it with existing code, and it's like, right, like everybody's just like, tell me more. So especially in this time when people have been laying folks off and all of that, right? Like every single company is a data company. whether you like it or not, right? And so that really is a gift and a curse for us because everybody uses different data in different ways. Everybody stores it in different ways, right? Like I go into some spots and it's just like everything's in Excel, or you go to some place and it's like we have a microservice for everything, right? And it's just I don't know, man. It's wild to see, but really all that we're doing is just trying to reduce that complexity and give people the tools to innovate with real time data. And that's by and large has been the reason why people have been able to build an emotive relationship with us and our platform and the things that we're doing.
And in terms of that kind of target of saying we want to build with data that is flowing at us in real time, continuously, unbounded, whatever nomenclature you want to use, generally that requires a lot of upfront technical and infrastructure investment. Usually that means, okay, we're going to use Kafka, or lately there are a few more entrants into the market for, whether you want to use Pulsar or Red Panda or what have you. And the overall ideal of I want to be able to build real-time applications, when it first came into the realm of possibility, it was usually only for the big tech companies of the world, Netflix, Google, Facebook, et cetera, because they had all of the engineers who built all these systems from the first place. They had the investment money to be able to put into actually building these systems. And so everybody else was saying, oh, I want real time too, and would start down the path, realize that it was prohibitively complicated and expensive, and then settle for some kind of half measure. And I'm wondering what you have seen as the overall shifts in the industry, in the technology, in the kind of level of understanding and sophistication across kind of your standard engineers that have made this a tractable problem and have brought real time into the realm of possibility for a larger audience.
Yeah, I mean, everybody. If you look at all of, I mean, that's really like the reason why we exist, right? Is that we looked at, the writing was on the wall and saw that all of these big companies are using real time data as their competitive advantage, right? You mentioned Netflix. Like, could you imagine? It's late at night or it's the weekend, you bringing somebody over for some Netflix and chill, and you got to wait 10 minutes to get a movie recommendation because somebody set up a data app that is doing full table scans and compiling a pre doing models and recommendations and all that type of stuff right on your data warehouse. Like that wouldn't fly. Or you're coming home from a bar late at night and you have to wait 10 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes to get a recommended driver, right? Like real time data is customer experience today. Like it is a prerequisite for that. And so you're right in that you look at these companies. Netflix got 2,000 data engineers, right? like I mean that's an arm. They have more data engineers than some people have regular engineers, right? Like that's insane. So who's going to compete with that? Yeah, and that's really I'm not trying to turn this into a Meroxa commercial, but that's really why we exist. Is that infrastructure should be democratized so that people can start bringing that business value, and then that innovation, and like the guardrails that we provide for people to innovate at that level. That's something that is going to usher in a whole new set of experiences and apps that weren't possible to people because they just simply didn't have the money and resources and expertise to make those things happen. And like that's the benefit that we have, right? It's like it can go from single person startup, or somebody that's tinkering on the idea, all the way up to old world legacy e-commerce, banking, defense, like all that type of stuff. I think that's really the mindset that people have to start thinking. And what I'm a big proponent of is that real time data should just be the default, right? Real time data doesn't necessarily like having data flowing in real time doesn't mean event driven, right? But it just means that as actions are happening across your platform, your app, whatever it is, that activity is getting tracked somewhere in real time, and it's very granular, it's very actionable, and you can do things with it if you want to in the moment that you need to. And that's really the if we can get all of these companies at a base level to start doing that, I think you're going to start to see better apps and better customer experiences. I mean, like that's really the goal, right? Is just to do that. And for me, it's like there's a ton of these what I call intelligent insights and analytic companies where it's like, yo, you just got to get the data to us, and then like we can give you all of this. But the hard part is actually like getting the data structured in a format that they're kind of black box and go do the thing and provide the value at that point, right? And it's like we handle that first part, but also we give you the guardrails to make that second part easier, scalable, and that type of thing. So that's really the value prop and sell that we have when we go talk to an organization.
And beyond the baseline infrastructure of I have the pipes, I'm able to get data in and it's able to get processed and spit back out the other end in real time, what are some of the other barriers or aspects of the kind of complexity of working with real time data that you see teams run into once they say, okay, I've got Meroxa, it solves all my plumbing problems. Now what?
Yeah, exactly. It's a different access pattern, right? Like people are used to writing a select star from orders, kind of query, right? They aren't really like select star from, cart update or something like that, right? Like just the granularity of the data. Like people are just used to dealing with snapshots, right? In the CSV world, right? And it's like I think part of the problem is that folks really aren't oriented for that type of world where it's super granular and it's micro versus like we getting a CSV dump full of just data upon data upon data upon data, right? And I think like framing your mindset around the different types of data that can come in, whether and have it be consistent. I think that's the thing. The other challenge around working with real time data is like order guarantees and delivery semantics and like like all those types of things, right? And so we handle a lot of that, but I mean, deduping is a problem for everybody, right? Like scaling is a problem for most people, not us, but a lot of people, right? And so just understanding how to deal with those types of patterns and architectural decisions and things, that's it's just a new world that we're trying to usher in, right? Like everybody's talking about data apps and data management, all that stuff, but they talk about it from like the outskirts of it, right? Like this data lineage, this data governance, this data observability, is metadata management. And it's like all of that doesn't necessarily talk about the actual experience of how you're using that data to provide customer experiences. All right, like all that stuff is just pure overhead. And yeah, it can add things, but it's like I just need to go from point A to point B, and you're just like let me throw a spoiler on the car, and it's like I don't really need that right now. Like I just need to go from here to here, right? And so I feel like there needs to be a simplification of the data landscape, so people don't see this as too much of a Herculean task.
Now that real time data is at the point of democratization, more people are starting to embark on their own journeys of actually incorporating that into their product offerings or building whole applications around this paradigm. What are some of the new categories of the types of products and applications and experiences that you have seen being unlocked by this broader availability of the underlying technology?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that this unlocks is that it can move decision making and processing closer to the edge, right? And because now if I can get a granular kind of bite of activity coming in, I can do some action on that versus, all right, well, I got to wait every hour to get a dump of the last hour of activity, then I got to run some analytics, and then that gets into some tables and blah blah blah, and maybe 3-4 hours down the line, assuming I have everything already set up and automated, right? Like, which most people don't, but like, 3 to 4 hours down the line, then I can actually, give that result or provide some value back. And it's like, yeah, no, I can actually push that back a little bit further, right? Or I don't have to wait. I don't have to choose either or. That's the other part too, right? Where it's like, oh, am I doing this for analysis or am I actually being proactive, right? And like the analysis part, you're looking backwards, but being proactive, like with the real time data, you're actually doing the stuff in time. So I think pushing the decision making and processing closer to the edge is really like one of the biggest benefits that we've seen that's kind of unlocked the next generation of kind of customer experiences and value. And that's really where people want to be at. And it's not, let's throw more infrastructure or more point products at the problem. Is no, we already have a great foundation. Let's build upon that and start thinking about more about how we can be more applicable and relevant to our customers. I mean, that's what it is at the name of the game, right? It's like, whether your customer is external or internal, you're trying to use the data to tell a story or to provide value to whoever needs it, right? And so, that's really the benefit of using us and pushing the decision making and the ability to do all those different types of things. closer to the edge, and then not having to sacrifice like historical kind of analysis and then proactive customer engagement.
And with that experience of pushing more of that decision making to the edge, pushing the experience to being much lower latency, that also brings the possibility of increasing the risk profile because you have a much shorter window to be able to react to any bad data, any, bugs that get introduced, any errors in kind of the source systems. And I'm wondering how that impacts the kind of the appetite for risk and the overall risk profile of the applications that are being built, and how that also influences the types of applications that companies are comfortable building as they first start to explore the
I
space.
mean, that's not going to change regardless if it's a data app or it's just a regular web app, right? Like, that risk profile is going to be there. I think actually for us, because we are just plain regular code and we're end to end, you can just write a unit test or a functional test. You don't have to set up a whole bunch of infrastructure to like do regular testing, right? Like it can be done locally on your machine before you actually deploy it and all that type of stuff, right? Like if you have good testing practices in general for your web app and like all that type of stuff, like porting that over to Meroxa is super easy because it's just regular code, man. You can use your data dog to see the output of the functions and monitor, do all this Datadog or Splunk or whatever it is, right? Like it just literally just fits into your existing workflows. So it hasn't changed. I wouldn't say like, yeah, it hasn't changed by and large the types of apps that people are building. I think because we're giving them the guardrails to experiment, they're more willing to do some of the riskier things because, they can have more repeated chances at bat. They don't have to wait 2 to 3 weeks for the data team to give an update or blah, blah, blah. Like it fits within their existing software development lifecycle, right? And like, I think that confidence and that foundation literally gives them the ability to be more risky and to do things that they didn't think were possible with their existing kind of architecture and stacks.
And for any type of more kind of potentially sensitive data applications or organizations that are in a more kind of rigorous regulatory environment, what are some of the types of technical controls that they should be thinking about, either in terms of validating the source data as it's coming into the pipeline, or as it's traversing the pipeline before it gets delivered? Just kind of what are the available points of mitigation or overall strategies for mitigating some of those risk profiles?
Yeah, I mean, we run, on premise, off premise, at the edge, hybrid, like every combination that you can think of. And especially for some of these highly regulated environments, right? Like one, we're encrypted end to end, right? So, as soon as we ingest something, we basically do like PKI at scale, right? Which is gets embedded in the key, on the ingest. And to access that data downstream, you need to basically have the key in order to do that. So, and then it's encrypted end to end. And that's regardless of where we're deployed and how we're deployed, right? And so the other piece of that too is that, right now, because a lot of the work that we do is in the Department of Defense is multi-class, is, kind of all over the place as far as like connectivity and things like that. So we've really had to build in a lot of order guaranteeing, a lot of like, resiliency into the platform, a lot of, all of that. So that way we can make sure that your data gets delivered, right? Like that, and just as a general ethos as a company, right? We got two jobs: never lose data, never expose data. So I think one of the things, like as we were going through compliance, and I'm not like saying all this stuff to like hackers come and mess with us, right? Like it's not like an open challenge because I'm sure that there's something we missed, but we get regular pen tests. We, all the compliance stuff that we have to deal with, like where we go overboard just to make sure that we never lose data and never expose data. I mean, so much of the so to the point where even when we're troubleshooting, we don't actually get to see the details of the record. We just see that like, hey, this source system sent XYZ over and it's, these fields, these types, but we don't actually see the values, right? Even like that's kind of one of the things. And like we give our users the ability to tune their caching or retention because underneath we use Kafka, right? And so you have to, even though it's processed and all of that, there's a log record that goes through that, right? And so like we're just making sure that we are doing right by our customers to make sure that those risks are mitigated as much as possible because I mean data comes from everywhere. And we do a lot of work to make sure that when you connect to something, it's gonna always stay connected. And then when you're moving that data and orchestrating it, it's always going to be in the format that you need.
And for developers who are building these real time applications, I'm wondering what are some of the technical capabilities, the architectural design kind of background that they need, some of the ways that this real time data introduces new architectural paradigms or new strains at the different integration points between systems, and just some of the overall application and system design process that needs to be brought into the process of being able to actually build these applications.
Yeah, I mean, I would say the biggest thing is we all we care about is or the skill set. I would say it could be like a junior engineer, because all you really need to know is where your data is coming from, where it's going, and what format it needs to be when it gets there. Like, that's literally the access pattern for how you do that. It's like, dot connect, dot process, and dot write. You like, done. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. And I think that like we tried to map that inside of our SDK. So if you know how to declare a method off of a object instant, like that type of stuff, you too now can be a data engineer, right? Like, that's pretty much it. So that's really the thing. And like, just learning the architecture underneath, like, that's our whole value prop, is that you don't really need to know the architecture underneath. Um, because why, right? Like, if I'm in, let's just say I'm the New York Times, right? Like, am I a distributed data company? I mean, not really. I'm a news company. So all I really want is like I want to be able to get people to create content faster and like those types of things. I don't care about setting up a ingest service and airflow orchestration and blah blah blah. Like, that's a means to an end, and it shouldn't be the thing that you're spending the most time and resources on. And like, that's really the value. So yeah, I mean, junior engineer can, as long as they know how to declare methods, they can use Meroxa, and nobody should really have to worry about the underlying infrastructure.
And as a service provider and a platform operator focused on this real time space, I know, as you've mentioned, that you're built on top of Kafka as your kind of core backbone of the system. I'm wondering, over the past couple of years, as you have matured the platform, kind of adapted the capabilities, added this interface on top to be able to simplify or and kind of abstract away all of the internals for people, what are some of the overall kind of system design evolutions that have gone internally into
Oh
Meroxa,
man.
and your perspective on the level of kind of maturity and capability of the kind of streaming technologies more broadly.
Yeah, I mean, our architecture has changed quite a bit, right? Like, these are changes that we knew to expect, right? But one of the biggest things that we ended up doing was that we rewrote our Kafka Connect, and we rewrote that in Go into an open source project called Conduit. And there were platform reasons and just kind of functionality reasons why we ended up doing that. So one, Kafka Connect runs on the JVM, and that's just a huge resource hog. Two, the connectors are just kind of all over the place as far as quality and efficiency. We found out that, like, oh snap, if you use the Redshift connector, that's like a gigabyte of RAM. Now, multiply that across all of our customer base, right? And it's like, you get all of these provisioned resources and not a lot of consistent, throughput. And so it was just like, why are we doing that? Right? Like, why do we have all these beefy boxes just for the Kafka Connect connector? And it's just not super performant. Other thing too is that we wanted people to be able to write connectors in their favorite languages. And so to start building this ecosystem. Like Kafka, I get why they had to, I mean, Confluent, why they had to kind of close down the ecosystem because of business reasons. But look, at the end of the day, right, like, if I want to build a connector, like, I shouldn't have to go through some weird esoteric kind of, license approval process. Or if I want to update a connector based off of my use case, I shouldn't have to, be subjected to my vendor's product roadmap like thing. Like, it just didn't make sense. So we built our own for that reason. And then just on the operational side, like, we started to use that on our for ourselves. So all of our services run on Kubernetes, all containerized and all that type of stuff. We have custom Kubernetes controllers that help talk to our control plane to do all the automation and things like that. But also one of the interesting things that we found out is like on Kafka Connect just randomly creates new topics for you. And like there was no, kind of predictability as to how we can get that stuff done. So for some of the workflows that we needed to do, right, and like, be able to manage streams and some of the work stuff that we have down the line with like stateful stream processing, we need to have a little bit more control over the life cycle of an event. All right. And like Kafka Connect just didn't give that to you. And so, it just turns out like, oh yeah, this actually works. This is better for us. And now we can scale this better. We can, customize it better. And it's just a better customer experience down the line for data integration. And that thing can sit alone, be a standalone thing, or you're going to put it inside of this giant infrastructure and like do amazing things. So, we've got it. Kafka Connect runs a standalone Go binary, single binary, but like it's like 30 megabytes. We can deploy that anywhere, right? do all types of things, right? And so, I mean, like it's super cool, and that's probably the biggest architectural change that we've had. I mean, pretty soon, I think either mid this year, towards the end of this year, we're gonna 1.0 it. It's a bunch of connectors that we got for it. It actually, we included a runtime so you can run your existing Kafka Connect connectors. But I mean, for us, that's really been our biggest competitive advantage, because the other part of it is like we can generate super high quality connectors very, very, very fast. Right. And like it's already Kafka compatible and like all that type of stuff. So yeah, I mean it's pretty cool.
And if you were to start over today, brand new with the infrastructure, with the ecosystem as it is now, wondering what are some of the other architectural primitives that you would orient around, or ways that you would rethink the overall implementation of your stack?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that we were looking at is like doing the stateful stream processing and probably doing that a little sooner, right? So right now we're stateless, right? And it's just like, you can pass this stuff through, but like a lot of the use cases around analytics, which is where a lot of people find the value in, need stateful stream processing. So, building in Beam and Flink into the platform, right? Like that's something that we're doing now, which also, to your last question, like how's the architecture change? But like, yeah, we're introducing like, Flink as a our stateful stream processor runtime, right? And like that's because of the customer demand and use cases, all this stuff that have evolved. Now Meroxa, or will be, once we release out to the public, again, you won't have to worry about the infrastructure. You can just do .window, .aggregate, .join, right? Like it's pretty cool to do, right? Like, instead of like, oh man, I got to get this Flink job, I got to do this, I got to manage the schema, I got to like all this. And it's like, no, 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 no. This is just this, right?
Need to make sure I'm checkpointing it properly.
Exactly. Like you ain't got to worry about that. Like we'll handle all of that for you, right? And I think that that's something that is super useful. Other thing I forgot to mention, because like we do so much cool stuff underneath the hood, is like we'll have a dot analytics thing where it's basically like our own real time store. So for people that probably are used to using like ClickHouse or Druid or Pinot or something like that, right? Like again, you don't have to worry about it. Like we'll pre-compile the schemas for you. We'll do all of that and make it easy for people to do these queries in real time as well. So I think like, just put it behind the endpoint, right? Like you just go to, whatever your data app name is and slash query, and like you'll be able to, write SQL and things like that. Right. And so, for us, it's just really making that experience easier end to end so that people can, interact with the data as it is in real time. And like, again, is for me, I always say it's kind of like the phone system, right? Like, we've had 7-digit, 10-digit phone numbers forever. The technology underneath it has changed, but the user interface part of that is always the same. I just dial a number and I can pick up on the other end. All right. And that's really kind of what we're doing underneath the hood, is just like, oh, we'll give you additional functionality, but you don't necessarily need to know how the sausage is made. Right. We'll give you the ability to tune it and, kind of choose your own flavors. But at the end of the day, right, like for 90% of the world, the base offering is going to be okay.
Absolutely. And you mentioned kind of statefulness and kind of being able to do windowing functions is something that you're investing in now. Another aspect of streaming data that people will typically run into is wanting to be able to actually join data across
Yep.
streams as they're traversing the different pipes, as well as being able to do transactional workflows where I only want to actually commit this record to the stream if this other record is also committed at the same time. So being able to do kind of atomic operations on top of the streams. And I'm wondering what your level of investment has been on those types of capabilities as well.
For stateful stream processing, like you just named a whole bunch of stuff that we're abstracting away, right? like at the end of the day, right? Like the machine should be able to help you do a lot of that stuff. But again, when you want to join the stream, what do you want to do? Like just talk out that algorithm, right? It's like, oh, I got data source A, data source B. I want to join on a specific field or a specific key, right? Like, oh, that sounds like a method I can do. Give me, give me whatever it is, data source dot, or whatever it is, like app dot join. And the first argument is stream one, stream two, and then the third, second argument is stream two. The third argument is the key, right? Like, and then I can just store that in a variable or a collection. You know what I'm saying? Like, which one would you rather have, right? And like, that's the experience that we're bringing out to the world. And then over time, as more paradigms get introduced to underlying platforms, we'll add more functionality as we see fit. But like for most people, all you need is dot join or dot aggregate or something like that. Like the maintenance and operation of that, just leave that to us so we can handle it. But like, yeah, I mean that's really the user interface that we're thinking about bringing out via code.
And in terms of the kind of API design, the interface, the ways that you kind of document and communicate about the problems that you're solving and kind of trying to avoid having to get too deep into the weeds about the ways that those problems are being solved. I'm curious what your overall philosophy has been, your approach for actually building out those APIs and validating them and ensuring that developers are able to intuit what they are actually doing without maybe saying like, oh, I thought it was doing this thing, but it actually did this completely different random thing that I didn't want.
Yeah. We don't want any like weirdo side effects from that stuff. But we start. I mean, it's just us being product focused, right? Is like we don't fall in love with the technology. We start with the experience and the user journey first, and then work backwards, right? And figure out like, okay, well, what pieces of technology or combinations of technology can we leverage to drive the ideal user experience. So when I say like dot join or dot aggregate, right? Like that's where we start. Right. And it's like, okay, well, when we do that, we do customer interviews and things like that. And we just start thinking about like, okay, well, what are the expectations of this output, or what are the expectations of this, kind of the high level API. And then once we get that in, and then that's when we kind of, go down go through the paces of, okay, well, this is how we surface that view. And I think that's really the approach that, if you're focused on the product and the experience, it's easier because people aren't necessarily like, you built the thing first, then you go back and refactor to make it more performant, more secure, blah blah blah, right? Like that's the thing that, with everything that we do, we just try to be mindful of that.
And in terms of the ways that people are employing Meroxa, the types of applications that they're building, what are some of the most interesting or innovative or unexpected ways that you've seen it used?
Man, a lot of stuff I can't talk about because we do a lot of stuff in defense. But I mean, look, man, we've I wouldn't say a lot of it is super interesting but it's interesting because of, like from a use case perspective, there's a lot of data migration, there's a lot of like transformations, and going from legacy to kind of modern things. But I would say it's interesting because of the people who use it, right? And like the things that they're trying to solve is interesting to them. That's all I care about, right? As long as it's interesting to you, real time search indexing, is that going to get people like, oh man, man, my inventory on my e-commerce website is always up to date.
Some
That
people.
is so great. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like that type of thing. But one of the fun things are, we had some people, kind of building apps, right? And like, you just start to see like people are, doing interesting things around stock watching and, building models there in the financial services, right? And like the ability for people to kind of do active learning instead of like using some of these like GPT things and generative AI things, right? Like instead of them having to use billions of data points, they can like build their own, kind of data driven or data focused, data centric models and stuff like that, right? And like the applicability on that and for like risk mitigation and simulations and all that type of stuff is actually kind of cool to see. But it's like that's in the fintech world. That's what they do, right? Like, not really interesting to me, but long as you like it and you pay me every month to be able to do that, hey, I love it, man. So that's just kind of one of the things.
And in your experience of building Meroxa, building out this product, exploring this problem space, what are some of the most interesting or unexpected or challenging lessons that you've learned personally?
Oh man, it's one of those things where we're we stand on the shoulders of giants, right? And what I mean by that is we're system engineer first, software engineer second, which means that we'll curate existing components and try to put them together, and if it doesn't necessarily work, then we'll build something. And so a lot of these like very 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 popular products in the open source world, they just really bad developer experience, right? Like just or like people don't necessarily think about scaling and kind of those things, right? And it's like we've had to make some changes and upstream changes to repos and things like that because of people not understanding how these things can be used in the use cases you have, which is again, it's a generic platform, it's an open source thing. Like people have their windows and lenses and into all these things, and so it's just like sometimes we'll get into things. It's like, yo, there has to be somebody that's complaining about this stuff because this legit does not make sense, right? Like those types of things. So we find ourselves running into that like quite a bit, and for better or worse, like you'll read a project and be like, oh, this sounds great, I can use it, and then once you start digging into the nitty gritty, it's like, oh man, like yeah, there's some weirdo kind of side effects or negative interactions that you might have when you start integrating those things. So yeah, I think from a technical aspect, that's one of the things that we've learned. I mean, just in general, right? Like talking to people and understanding how important data is to them on a day to day basis and how shitty their experiences have been. Like that's super surprising. Like you're okay waiting 3 months to get a result back for like mission critical stuff. Other thing that's super surprising is like the amount of legacy stuff that's out there. I'm like, yo, whoever sold IBM DB2, like that person's probably in like the salesperson all Hall of Fame at some point. Like there's so much IBM DB2 out there. And I was just like, yo, why is this a thing? How is this a thing? Like, it's just like, wow, man, this is, the 80s called and they want their database back. So, it's just some of that stuff where it's just like, it just surprises you. Like, yo, y'all still are using it. Like, all I hear in my day to day is like, Snowflake is everywhere, Databricks is everywhere. Then when you go start talking to these enterprises, they're like, we literally just got on Hadoop. So now you're telling me there's this new thing that I got to worry about? I hope pump your brakes, kind of thing. So I think that's one of the things that is the most surprising for us. Some of the things that are the most surprising for us.
Absolutely, especially on the legacy point. As somebody who, in my career, has been in the process of actually installing a brand new AS400.
That's a thing.
That's a thing.
Wait! You said brand new install of like on what machine? Right? Like,
No, an actual AS400, like that is the
that's
machine.
what
They
I'm
they
saying.
cart it in on a pallet and they say, "Here you go."
Like they still manufacture those, or was it?
I mean, as of about 10, 15 years ago,
That's
yeah.
wild. That's what I'm like. You
Yep.
said brand new and AS400. Like that is tripping me out right now, man. Okay,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, I had somebody on my team who was the dedicated RPG developer.
I will say this: I've written more COBOL and Fortran in the probably the last like year than I've ever had to.
Yep. These things never die. They just
Ever,
go dormant.
ever die.
And so, for people who are exploring this space of real time, what are the cases where Meroxa is the wrong choice?
There is no. I would say like until we get the like the stream processing stuff like fully baked, there's some like weird ergonomics around like that type of stuff, and you wouldn't use it for stateful stream processing, where you need to do joins and aggregations and kind of window things and blah blah blah. Like that's not something that is the best experience for us right now. But everything else fair game. So there's a lot of cool things that people are doing, and find a utility on our platform, right, in a myriad of ways. So
And as you continue to build and iterate on the product, what are some of the things you have planned for the near to medium term of Meroxa, or any particular problem areas that you're excited to dig into?
yeah, definitely. So obviously, you keep hearing me say stateful stream processing, adding support for some additional languages like C Sharp and Kotlin and maybe even Rust. Adding support for more connectors. Interoperability with more streaming systems like Pulsar and Red Panda and some of those things. Right. I also think that we're getting into the generative space. So much like everybody else and their mama right now has some like dope kind of coding experiences driven by generative AI. We will play in that space on multiple levels as well, including like in our dashboard when you'll be able to ask questions about the data, as it moves in real time, to build the apps in real time. And I think like, we'll have a pretty cool experience there. And then, eventually like start, moving away from just the developer persona and moving into different personas do we build our own REPL kind of workbook based flow for data scientists and analysts? What does that look like for streaming data? That's not something that we people have had. All right, like what does data cataloging and data governance look like for streams? All right, like you got it for static data, but what about data in motion? All right, like what does that look like? Some of those things are near term that we're thinking about, and I think again is really about building the best experience for engineers and people that are going to use data to solve problems, answer questions, and innovate for customers.
Are there any other aspects of the overall space of building real time data applications and the work that you're doing at Meroxa to support it that we didn't discuss yet that you'd like to cover before we close out the show?
No, man. I think we talked about a lot of it. Everybody needs to start thinking real time first. Real time first. That's it.
Well, for anybody who wants to get in touch with you and follow along with the work that you're doing, I'll have you add your preferred contact information to the show notes. And as the final question, I'd like to get your perspective on what you see as being the biggest gap in the tooling or technology that's available for data management today.
Ooh, uh, it's just so it's just so fragmented, man. Like there's literally a point solution for everything, and I'm hoping that at some point that there's going to be consolidation, and then consolidation around like jobs, jobs to be done, right? But like, man, there's just so much. Just I was talking to somebody this other day. It's like I don't know if these companies are actually doing well or they're just posting content every day, right? Like, but they're posting content every day and it's making people feel like, oh, I need this thing. But like when you get into like a large organization, you don't really need those things, right? And it's just like that's the thing where I'm just kind of like we've just created this demand, and it's just kind of like I don't know, man. It's just that fragmentation is just killing us right now. So I don't think that there is a gap. I think it's honestly too much, right? Like maybe the gap is understanding like interoperability between those systems, right? And how do we make that better? How do we reduce the kind of operational and decision making overhead that people have to make when traversing each of those systems, right? Because the more things you add on to it, it gets infinitely more complex. So yeah, man, those are the kind of things that I just think like if we all thought about this in a much better fashion, and there's some consolidation, like the state of things for customer experience and providing that value can get a lot better.
Well, thank you very much for taking the time today to join me and share the work that you've been doing at Meroxa to help support real time application developers. Definitely a very interesting problem space, and it's great to see that evolve and mature. So, thank you for all the time and work that you and your team are putting into that, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
I appreciate that, man. Thank you very much for having me on.
Thank you for listening.
Don't forget to check out our other shows, Podcast.init, which covers the Python language, its community, and the innovative ways it is being used, and the Machine Learning Podcast, which helps you go from idea to production with machine learning. Visit the site at dataengineeringpodcast.com to subscribe to the show, sign up for the mailing list, and read the show notes. And if you've learned something or tried out a project from the show, then tell us about it. Email hosts at dataengineeringpodcast.com with your story. And to help other people find the show, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts and tell your friends and coworkers.